Welcome to By His Grace Outdoors, where we talk the truth about our hunting, our health, and our heart. Here is your host, Kerry Nelson, and co-host Cody Carson and Eli Nelson.
Well, we'd like to welcome everybody to the By His Grace Outdoors podcast. My name is Kerry Nelson, along with Cody Carson. We are coming live tonight from the By His Grace Man Cave. Cody, how's it going?
It's going great, Brother Kerry. Glad to be here tonight.
Well, we have long wanted to do a podcast, and
yes, sir.
We have, for several years, we helped Southern Legend Outdoors and Kevin Bearfield. We used to co-host with Kevin, and of course, Kevin got real busy with life. That happens when you have extra jobs and you have kids, and so the Southern Legend Outdoor podcast has took a break. It's not over, but it's took a break, and so I'm glad to have you as my co-host. Eli, my son Eli Nelson will be joining us from time to time. But Cody, tell us, I know the listeners will want to know who we are. So right. I thought we'd just start off. This is our first podcast to tell who you are. So tell us a little bit about Cody Carson.
Well, like you said, my name is Cody Carson. I'm from Moorville, Mississippi. Born there, lived there, been there my whole life. 39 years old. I'm married. I have married my high school sweetheart, Melissa Jobe. And we have 3 beautiful kids this side of heaven, and we've got one that's in heaven. And so that's just who I am. And that's a little bit of what we are, and just love to love the outdoors, love to hunt.
Sure.
I always have loved to, just be out in God's creation. And so I thought we'd get on here, and Brother Kerry asked us to join and just give our thoughts on the outdoor life. So that's here we are.
And we go way back, because I've been your pastor since you were how old?
Since I was 11, if we got the math right.
Yeah, 11-year-old. Well, Sunday we began 29 years
29.
at the church.
Well, that would be right.
And so I've just known you, and of course your dad is one of the dearest friends I've ever had. And then you were a kid when I came.
Right.
I was almost a kid when I came. I was a young 26-year-old man, but we just grew up, and watching you grow up and loving the outdoors and loving what we do, and you've helped us over the years, and just been supportive of all of the things By His Grace Outdoors has done. You love the outdoors, but you also have a giving heart, and that's what By His Grace Outdoors is.
Exactly.
And so, and By His Grace Outdoors, who are we? If you're listening and you don't know anything about us, By His Grace Outdoors began 25 years ago, and we just love to take kids. We started taking kids hunting and filming them. We're here in the Man Cave, the By His Grace Outdoors Man Cave, and there's pictures all over the wall of the memories of all these years, and some of the pictures have my dad in it.
Right.
And so that's where I got the love of the outdoors, is with my father. He was a hunter, and we grew up quail hunting. There was no deer and turkey when I was a kid in Pontotoc County, but there were plenty of quail, plenty of squirrel, plenty of rabbit, plenty of dove, and my daddy was a bird hunter, and he got me into hunting. But my daddy did something that a lot of people don't know. My daddy loved to film, and this was back with the old 8mm silent home video movie cameras, and when you'd play it, it'd be reel to reel and just be clicking. There's no sound. You could see people mouths moving, but you couldn't hear what they were saying. And so my daddy gave me a love for the outdoors, gave me a love for videoing, and so we've just been doing this for 25 years. We try to take people hunting. We love to take kids. We love to take disabled. Whatever the situation is, whether a person's in a wheelchair, whether a person has other disabilities, and and then we love to take pastors. I have a heart for pastors.
Right.
You have a heart for pastors. Your grandfather founded Brother Joe Holcomb, the church that I pastor, and that you've grew up in all your life. Mm-hmm. And so we just have a heart for pastors, just to give them some time to get out and enjoy the outdoors. You know, what's interesting about pastors, and I'll tell you this, is, and I know pastors. This is not taking a stab in the dark at something. I know these situations to be true. There's a lot of pastors, when they take a church, when they move into a community, well, they're the outsider. They're moving into a community where they certainly don't have any land of their own.
Right.
A lot of pastors, for years, I know my father did, my whole life lived in the church pastoral, so they don't have land to hunt. And so if a member don't ask them to hunt private land, or they don't get invited in a club, a lot of pastors don't have anywhere to hunt.
Right, yeah.
So they just quit hunting. And so this has been a great ministry to the men of God across America and beyond. We've took missionaries, we've took people from other countries, and so by His Grace Outdoors, we just love the outdoors, love being a blessing to others, and there's so many people that make By His Grace Outdoors what it is today. And so that's who we are. I being a pastor, being at Grace Memorial Baptist Church all these years, I've just been able to make so many memories in the ministry, and above and beyond that in the hunting ministry. God has just gave us some great paths to cross, and I know you have the same stories.
Well, I have some of the same stories, and like I said, we've been blessed to be able to help as we can here and there. But I've also been on the receiving end of By His Grace Outdoors a couple different occasions, and we'll go into some story time on some later podcasts. But just to give you a brief summary, there was a couple times where I couldn't hunt the way I normally hunt. I hunt a little bit different than other folks, and I'm big into climbing trees and climbers. Do a little saddle hunting. I had a surgery in 2019, and for about 7 months, that just was not an option. And if I wanted to hunt, it had to be different. It had to be something I wasn't used to. I didn't know anything about food plots and big nice shoot houses, because I grew up in a family that didn't have any land. I didn't have anywhere to go. So hunting public land with a climber on my back was not an option. Well, I just happened to have a pastor who had a little bit of hunting land.
Yeah, there you go.
So he brought me to a shoot house. All I had to do was show up. We got in a shoot house. I think we saw over 20 does, big, beautiful food plot, big, nice shoot house. And that's when I got my first taste of the real By His Grace Outdoors.
Sure.
The refreshment that brought me, having a yearning to be out and hunt like I used to be, and having that taken away for a short time, it was gone. And had it not been for By His Grace Outdoors, I probably wouldn't have been hunting that year.
Sure.
So it's a blessing to give, and I've also been on the receiving end of it. So that's what we're here to do. We're here to share some experience and share some knowledge, and hope that we can be a blessing to someone else down the line through By His Grace Outdoors.
Well, and what you said is true. It's always, every year, it's new people. It's some of the same people that we've met and we still get to reach out to, and they get to go. But every year, just like in your situation,
Yeah.
I mean, you got down, you had to have a surgery,
Oh, yeah.
and a major surgery. And so we'll run across that this year. I'll get a phone call here and there and say, Brother Kerry,
Yeah.
I've got a friend, I've got a family, I know somebody. Is there any time that you got free? And what we mostly do is just work them in, because we've already got the whole year set up, but we try to work folks in, and there'll be situations like that. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I know during that time it was good for you to be able to get out after going through what you went through. And so that's great. Well, talking about hunting, we, Mississippi season, the velvet hunt was this past weekend,
Right.
And all the bow hunters was out, and
It was out in full force.
Did you hear of anybody that got a good
I
buck in velvet?
I have some good friends. A lot of them hunted. I have one friend in particular that killed a really nice 8-point. He killed it on the last evening, right before dark, and the wind had kind of got a little shifty on him, so he wasn't able to get into him. And finally, last minute, he said he didn't even leave the house till about 4 o'clock, because that's when the wind shifted. And he got in on a bachelor group and picked out the best one he had been getting some pictures of, and made a great shot, made a short recovery, and they got him a really nice Mississippi Velvet 8-point. We was able to hunt that Friday evening, that Saturday morning, and that Saturday evening, but with the wind doing the things it had done on the places we had set up, we wasn't able to get into them, so we hunted some new spots. End up seeing a few does here and there. Saw one doe that had a spotted fawn just right with her. So we saw some deer. It was good to be out in the woods. It was hot. We sweated. We fought the mosquitoes.
And rain.
We had that hurricane.
We've been waiting on rain,
right.
and it showed up during the velvet hunt.
But we was able Saturday morning to take a new hunter, a new bow hunter, a new tree climber. Like I said, we'll talk about it later, but I'm big into the saddle hunting now. I do the climbing the trees with the sticks and the saddles, and a brand new hunter tagged along with me and said, hey, I just want to learn, show me the ropes. And so we did. We climbed a tree. About 9:30, we saw a doe and a fawn come through, and he was as pumped as it had been a big 10-point buck. Now we didn't even draw the bows. But it was just good to be out in God's creation and showing the process to somebody new who had never done it before.
Right.
So
well, we had we don't have a lot of bow hunters throughout the year. The kids, a lot of kids don't bow hunt. A lot of disabled don't bow hunt,
right.
And then a lot of pastors don't bow hunt, and so we don't have a whole. We have some, but we have a group that comes since they've been doing the velvet hunt.
Right.
They come and hunt, and they seen several deer, but nothing to shoot at. But they got wet. That's for sure.
You got wet if you got out for sure, especially that Saturday morning. It was still dropping rain on us. Bow hunting it's very rewarding, but it's hard to just pick up and go without a little bit of practice. So that kind of wards off a few folks. So I have been blessed at my house to actually open up a little bow shop, and we've been just helping new hunters and helping them get their equipment set up. I do not charge for my services. This is not a selfless plug. You just pay for the materials. That's all I do, because I want to promote the sport of archery. I have a passion for that. I've always done it.
You have.
And so I thought it. God has blessed me with some things and some knowledge. Not that I know anything worth telling, but what little I do know, I'm glad to share. And so we've helped set some new hunters up with some equipment and get some new bow hunters out in the world. Now, they're not going to start until the regular season starts. They weren't quite ready for the velvet hunting, but they've been coming and shooting. I've got some targets at the house, and
talk about that. It is fixing October the 1st.
Yeah, October 1st.
And bow hunters, I had a friend of mine that used to bow hunt all the time, and this is what he always said: I see more deer than gun hunters. Now, whether he killed or not, he just said it's an opportunity. I get a whole nother month or so that I get to see more deer.
Well, here's what I figured out about bow hunting from a young age. I killed my first deer with a bow at 16 years old. It was a doe. I had saved up my money all summer. I joined a hunting club, did the whole camera deal. Back then, I'm only 39, but I've been doing this for a while. So back then, we were using the 35 millimeter rolls where you got 22 steel shots per roll, and that was all you got, So we put the cameras out, and we had the stand set up, and I was a 16-year-old boy, didn't know nothing about it. My draw length with the bow I had purchased, I knew nothing about it. If you could visualize what I'm saying, when you draw the bow back, my hand was plumb behind my head, not even touching my face. The draw was so long on the bow. I could shoot it great sometimes, and some days I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. I didn't have a bow hunter in the family. It just looked good on TV, so I thought I would try it. I have since learned a good bit, and early bow season, for me and the style of hunting that I do, I will see more deer from October 1st to the day gun season opens for the normal rifle hunter than I will the rest of the year.
Sure.
Because the deer are unpressured. They're still on some of a late summer pattern feeding, and it's just you just see more deer. It's just what the pressure does to them, I believe. But the main reason I like to bow hunt, especially in October, is because it's just the weather is so nice. You're not dealing with a lot of rain. October's typically one of our driest months of the year. You get some really cool mornings, but you're not having to layer up into 20 layers to stay warm. And so bow hunting has just really been a passion of mine. And we've been fortunate enough to kill some does here and there and a few good bucks with the bow. And it's just one of my favorite times of the year to be outdoors. Is during our Mississippi bow season, which opens up for us here October 1st.
Well, and we had some pastors last year that got together, and not only pastors, some church members, and they just got a burden to give By His Grace Outdoors a really nice crossbow.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of folks that we take, from kids to disabled, that would be the only option that they got.
Absolutely.
And so they gave it to me in the middle of October. So by the time we never got anybody, but I have several people. I was going to say we never got anybody to go last year, but I have several people lined up this year that we're going to take with the crossbow. And so I'm excited about that, because that gives another option to folks that A, couldn't climb, or B, couldn't draw because of size or a disability. So I think that's a great thing.
Well, a lot of hardcore bow hunters hate on the crossbow. It's not a real archery. It's not real bow hunting. And everybody's entitled to a wrong opinion if they want one. I have absolutely no problem with the crossbow if it gets a new hunter out in the woods, because there's not enough hunters out there. So
Sure.
If you're only going to hunt with the crossbow, now I might rag you a little bit, I'm not going to lie, but I'm glad to see anyone out during archery season, whether they've got a crossbow, a compound bow, a trad bow, whatever you like. My father's not a big bow hunter. His shoulder will not allow him. He broke his collarbone when he was in high school. He's never been able to pull a compound bow. He's tried several times. I've turned his bow down as low as it'll go. It just hurts him. So he bought a crossbow. He's got some spots ready for this season, and he's going to break the crossbow out. But if it were not for the crossbow, he would not be going. So
and with anything, things can be abused, and
Right.
And I think that's the hate on the crossbow. Is it's simpler in some ways, it's easier in some ways, and so a lot of people that don't use a crossbow see people that could use a compound bow and don't.
Yeah.
And I think but it is great for what we do and in the ministry, because it just gives those that we minister to, as you said, more opportunity to see more deer and get a chance to kill that they might not even get in a rifle season, because of the deer movement during rifle season.
Well, especially talking about youth hunters, it's tough to get a kid to want to sit still, especially when they're cold. So if you could line up some crossbow hunts during the early October when the weather's so nice, I mean that's just amazing. That would really occupy kids' time, and I think they'll just see more deer. That's how it works out for me, and so I think it'd work out for a lot of folks.
We've been at it the last 2 weeks. Of course, a lot of Mississippi folks, especially North Mississippi, we finally got a good rain. We got a lot of rain, and we've been planting food plots.
Right.
I know you're going to work on some of your private land this weekend, weather permitting and time permitting, but it is time for food plots. And one neat thing, of course, Brother Mark Newell helps us he's with Tecumani,
right.
and he is amazing when it comes to food plots and land management and all that. And he was helping me today and reminded me that even though the rain is not falling,
right,
the ground has been so saturated that as the sun beats down on it and pulls that moisture out with that seed, 5-6 inches in the ground,
exactly,
it's going to help germinate it. So if you planted this week and you're hoping for rain, that's kind of been the thing. When is it going to rain? But after the rain we got, if you can get in a field and go ahead and get it planted,
absolutely,
it's a perfect time.
Well, they call Brother Mark on his Instagram handle is the Dirt Jedi, and there's a reason for that, because he is really good at what he does, and he is good in a lot of ways. I will come across a bush or a tree. I texted him last week. I said, "Hey, brother, what kind of tree am I looking at right here?" Because it was one that I didn't recognize. It was a small species of crabapple that I just had never seen in the woods before. I found it, and I had no idea. I said, "Hey, what's this?" And so yeah, you're right, Brother Martin Newell. He's been a
And
blessing to me,
yeah.
and I know he has to this ministry.
And he'll be he'll be on the show. We'll save some time for Brother Mark and let him talk about some things. But so we love to hunt, and we know this to be true. Talking about Brother Mark, talking about you and me several years ago, we kind of got serious about our health. We're going to talk about hunting on this podcast, but we're going to take a little bit of time and talk about health, because bad health and not being able to get outdoors, you can't hunt.
Oh, absolutely.
And we know a lot of people that hunt. They go hunt elk. They'll go out into the mountain ranges and stay weeks, and they literally have to get in shape just for the hunt. But it's the same. It's still the same with us, everyday hunters, normal hunters. You know, we need to be conscious about our health. And in the ministry, I know that pastors a lot of time it's the running joke, you know, because they're overweight or they don't take care of themselves, and so it's kind of become a joke in the ministry. But the reality is, the older I get, I just turned 54 this summer, I'm finding that I want to be as healthy as I can. So there'll be times on this show that we talk about our health, and one thing that I want to do is talk about something that I learned several years ago to eat, and we had it tonight. By the way, we had a
fantastic
feast
tonight.
And so that's kind of a carry on from the Southern Legend Outdoors.
Okay.
So Kevin and Ken and Mark would come, and I would cook. So we'll do that. Me and you will definitely.
Hey, I'm here.
Definitely.
I got no problem with that.
Definitely. But we had bacon wrapped deer filled with cream cheese off the smoker. We had bacon wrapped wild turkey filled with cream cheese. We had green beans and peas and homemade cornbread. We had sweet potatoes
and onions.
And we cooked them in coconut oil. So here's the healthy thing about that. Anybody that would like to look this up, what I learned about the coconut oil is how good it is for you. Of course, you can get it refined or unrefined. I'll let the listeners study that on their own.
Okay.
But I put it in my coffee. Matter of fact, I want to get it in the NCT oil. I want to get it in my system early in the morning. But we love to cook with coconut oil, and we especially love to cook sweet potatoes. And one thing that I did years ago, we left the peeling on. So when we cut them into cubes, we leave the peeling on. We put onions in, and then we basically stir fry them in coconut oil. If you've never done that, every hunter that comes through, and I've got a few on my mind right now, like if I say, we're having a big hunt, we'd love for y'all to come, and they will send back, we eating sweet potatoes and onions?
Hey, let me just tell you about the sweet potatoes and onions he's speaking of, because I am that person. Up until spring of this year, I had never had it. I've never crossed my mind to cook sweet potatoes and onions. And Brother Matthew Ramsey was here, and he was cooking on the walk. And he cooked sweet potatoes and onions on the walk right after a turkey hunt one morning. And you hear that, and you go, sweet potatoes and onions? I don't know about that. But he told me, just try it.
Yeah.
I think I ate 4 servings of it. Because it is absolutely
well.
delicious.
And we have, and when you say that, I actually my walks are not actually walks. They're actually disc off a.
Well, they serve the purpose.
Yeah, and so Brother Josh Sparks welded me some bottoms on them, so we just flipped them over and disc blades, and we
never know.
That's exactly what it is. So. And welded handles on them. And so, but anyway, when I'm cooking those for our hunters, I have to fix several batches because it's almost so good that it's an appetizer if you get them done too quick.
Absolutely.
The fingers are going in. And then with the meal, like we cook them for breakfast, we'll have biscuits and eggs and meat and those. But then you turn around, you can fix them for supper.
So, go with anything.
If you're listening and you've never tried cubed, cut up, you can slice them, you can cube them, however you want to. But we like to cube them. They seem to cook better. And the onion, just cook them down. Let them get a little blackened, and let that coconut oil totally be absorbed in them. and try them. I think you'll love them. So for today's health tip, one of the best, of course, sweet potatoes are good for you, onions are good for you, and coconut oil is good for you. So they're really good combined. But we had a great supper, and that's one of the things about hunting is the camaraderie, the fellowship, the sitting around the table.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's nothing like sitting around. Tonight we had this great meal with our Milo sweet tea. You can't go wrong with Milo's.
Cannot go wrong with Milo's.
And we had the sweet tea, the unsweet tea, and the lemonade. And so it's just amazing how you can just sit around, and there's just a peace and a safety when you're sitting around a table with people of like-mindedness,
Exactly.
no matter what the like-mindedness is, and in this case, hunting.
And hunting. Well, it is exactly. Some of my fondest memories as a boy growing up, we hunted a lot of public land. We still do. We would have family gatherings at deer camp. All the ladies of the family would come in while the men were out hunting, and I can remember just meals just in the woods, set up tables and just be 10 or 11-year-old boy and just have our Thanksgiving right there in the deer woods. And usually somebody had killed a deer, and I can't tell you that how many times we have literally cleaned that deer right there and cooked it right there
Sure.
for that meal, and did that a lot growing up as a boy, just sitting around with like-minded people and my dad's family especially. And that's just some of my fondest memories of just sitting around, not even actually hunting, but just being around hunters and folks of like minds, just out enjoying,
Sure.
enjoying it. So that's
Well, and talking about, you bring that up, I'm kind of switching gear here.
Okay.
We've talked about our hunting, and we've talked a little bit about health. On this podcast, I'll always end it with our heart.
Exactly.
Because we certainly need physical health, but we need a right heart.
Exactly.
And me and you are joined together in a lot of things. Mm-hmm. We are joined in so many similar interests. We love the outdoor. Just we could go down the list. But the greatest thing that we're brothers in Christ.
Exactly.
All right. And so I was just thinking about our heart. And with this podcast, just to end it, we'll always end with something to try to help our heart. And you just bring up family. Mm-hmm. And I know in the last few weeks your family has went through some trying time. And there may be a listener out there that is going through similarly what you went through and your family went through. And, they may be listening and wondering, what am I going to do? Who am I going to turn to? What now? And, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to speak about that for just a minute as we end the podcast and let us know why it is that after what you went through a few weeks back, and your family, your parents, your brother, and all of your family, y'all went through such it was a shocking time, it was a grieving time, and you're here tonight. And I guess my thing to say to you is you're here tonight because of your strength in Christ. I was thinking about this before you tell our listeners what happened. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13 said, "But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that you sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Jesus will God bring with him." I was thinking about this in your situation. Paul's not telling them not to grieve, because nobody can lose a loved one and not grieve.
Exactly.
But he's saying that we sorrow not as others who have no hope. And I know tonight you're able to come do this podcast because you have a hope within you, and that hope is Jesus Christ. Tell us about what you went through.
Before we start talking about Tyler, I'd like to talk a little bit about my personal testimony, because it will help relate Tyler's story, if you don't mind. I was saved as a 17-year-old boy. I've always, been one of Brother Kerry's back row church members. We've always sat in the back, and that's just where we sat. And got married, had some tough times we'll get into later. As we first got married, we lost a child. God blessed us with 3 more beautiful babies. COVID hit, one excuse after another. There's no excuse, folks. I'm just here to tell you that I got lazy. Wasn't out doing anything wrong necessarily, but wasn't out doing anything right. Just me just got lazy. Just wasn't running my house like it needed to be ran. And God just convicted me of that, and He said, son, you can do better. My father said, son, if you're not going to bring your babies to church, send them with me, and that kind of rang a bell. And then God just broke me down one day. He said, I've given you too much for you to serve me the way you're serving me. And I said, you're absolutely right. And so I walked back down the aisle and rededicated my life. Started to think about Tyler in that situation. And I don't even know if you remember this, Brother Kerry, but as you were telling my story of us coming back down, Tyler had had enough of you talking. He just started walking down the aisle. He wanted to wanted to hug me because he had been telling me, get them babies in church. And so that's something I'll always remember. So a few weeks went by, and we haven't missed. We try not to miss. I said, if the doors are open, we want to be there. And Tyler was, he was always there. He had his spot on the church pew, and he was there. We got the videos and everything from him. I digress. I'm getting out of line. But I got a phone call July the 25th. I'd received a text earlier that morning. He said, hey, nobody's talked to Tyler today. He missed his food delivery. Have you talked to Tyler? I said, no, I have not talked to Tyler. But I immediately tried to call. He didn't answer. I texted him. He had the red receipt on his phone. He didn't read it. I called my dad. I said, hey, Dad, have you heard from Ty? Long story short, he said, no. He said, but we're headed over to check on him. We had some family that was local. They headed that way to check on him. And then my mother had called the landlord for her to go check on him as well. And the landlord found Tyler, and he had passed away. And so then they called me. I drive a delivery truck for a living. They called me. Jan, my stepmother, called me. She said, Cody, she said, you need to get to Pontotoc. They have found Tyler. He is gone. And my heart just absolutely dropped. I'm the oldest. Tyler's my middle brother. We have a younger brother named Seth, and it hit me. I knew what she said, but at the same time, it don't hit you. You know what I mean? It can't be real. No, that's not right. And so I get to Pontotoc, and by that time, I was about an hour away. By the time I get there, the medical team was already there, and about the time I got there, they rolled Tyler out, and it was. I'll never forget that scene, and I watched them roll my brother by, and it's just something you don't forget. So we was pretty devastated. I'm trying to hold it together. Tyler was one of the hardest-headed people I've ever met in my life, but he was also, without a doubt, had one of the biggest hearts of anyone that I have ever met. He loved my children something fierce, and he loved his other nieces like you've never seen, and that was his world, And so he was a great loss. And Tyler wasn't a big hunter. I know this is a hunting podcast. He hunted a little bit. After he had a couple car wrecks, he wasn't physically able to hunt like normal, so he got to hunt by his grace outdoors.
Sure.
That's where
hunted
he got.
With us last year.
That's how he got to hunt. He killed. If I'm not mistaken, Tyler had only killed 4 deer in his hunting career, as you say it, and one of them was here with a crossbow, a spike. Yeah. He killed a spike because I had killed a buck on the same day, so we got together and took some trophy pictures, if you will, of our 2 deer on the same day. So I didn't get to hunt a lot with Tyler after his injuries. He got to hunt here, and I'll never get to hunt with Tyler again. But Tyler was a saved individual.
Sure.
And So even though I never get to see him again on this side of heaven, I'm going to get to see him again because Tyler was a Christian, and I believe that with all my heart that I will see him again one day, and I believe that because I have faith through Christ. And if it were not for Jesus and the blessed reassurance that we get from the offering of Christ, I don't know how I'd be here today.
How you would make it.
I don't see how folks can. It's just so hard. We've had some tragedy in my life, and I'm so glad for the people that God put around me while I was in those tragedies. And Tyler helped me through some of them. Like I said, we'll talk about her later, but I've buried a child, and Tyler was one of the first people. When I looked up and raised my hands after that doctor said, she's gone, Tyler and Seth were there.
Sure.
They were the first two that I saw.
And talking about that, you came, you had knee surgery during the spring,
right.
And you came, and one of the first hunters that you stood and had a conversation with, he had buried a child.
Yes.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I had no clue
that
he had buried a child. And I just walked off. Y'all were on the hill by the shop, and I just walked off because I know that y'all speak a language that only parents that's ever buried a child speak.
Right.
And that's something about ministry.
Yeah.
It can be done in many ways, but it can also be done outdoors. And I would say to anyone listening to the podcast, maybe, when I say maybe, you may be going through a very similar situation, and we would just encourage you that in Christ we do not sorrow as those without Christ,
right.
because we have hope. And I appreciate you sharing that story.
Absolutely.
Well, by His Grace Outdoors, our first podcast. If you're listening, we want to thank you for that, and there'll be many more. We're excited about it, and we're looking forward to many, many more. Hope you have a great hunting season. We're going to be talking more hunting, talking with more hunters. And Cody, I appreciate you being here.
I'm glad to be here.
And we'll do it again next week.
Looking forward to the next
By
one.
His Grace Outdoors. We are what we are by the grace of God. 1 Corinthians 15:10.